Alright, so The Gray Man, Chapter 229, continues the story arc titled Saying Goodbye to Alan Walker. This one is specifically titled Concealment and Confidant. So, where to really begin with this chapter? Because, of course, we're still going through the issue of the mangaka having health problems, continuous health problems, and being unable to release chapters at regular intervals, honestly. So, a common complaint about all of this is the fact that with each chapter release, most people have basically forgotten what happened previously. I mean, you basically have to go through a large chunk of the series in order to keep your knowledge up to date of what happened. Um, Either that or just take a moment to try to recall everything. And even in terms of that, a lot of plot points feel like they're out of order, just in terms of who the Millennium Earl is, who Mana Walker is, just just a lot of things that don't quite add up the way they feel like they should in terms of plot, which, the chapter release dates don't really help with. I feel like we've gotten a little too deep into something that needs more explanation, but doesn't have the explanations come out regularly enough for people to remember and understand what these explanations are. This is not the fault of the mangaka, as you can't, mangakas ethics and their health situation are just atrocious almost by nature. But this series is not done any favors, and it's almost a miracle that been allowed to keep going. Honestly, so this whole series opens up with, honestly, this whole chapter is kind of brief to a certain extent, but Chowsy and Corey are continuing to search the town for Alan Walker and meet up with many of the searchers, which basically gives you an idea that um, uh, General Tidal had met up with Kaneda and captured him in order to take him back, and they basically used that as a cover to sneak Alan Walker and Johnny away from being captured by the Black Order. And, that's mostly the crux of this chapter. Just Alan, Johnny, Tidal, and Kaneda on this carriage escaping from the Black Order. Um, Johnny steps outside the carriage and just to talk about things, talk about the fact that he never really saw too much of the outside, how, he never got to experience as much as he would have liked to. Um, and how bad he feels about the fact that, Alan has up until now just been staring at Tim Campy's remains. They talk about Apricos and wondering if it is the heart of the innocent's heart. And wonders why Alan chooses to hide his existence. Why Link, you know, faked his own death in order to, follow Alan. You know, there's so many questions that we aren't really getting answers to. And, it's good in order to keep these questions fresh in our mind, but at the same time, it just highlights how many mysteries have come about, in the recent story arc that feel like we're never really gonna get an answer to. Johnny even asks why Tidal chose to help them, and it just mainly says that Lena Lee and Marie are in on it, and Kaneda had requested it. However, he does note that the next time they meet, he will take them in. He also states that if the human-shaped innocence is indeed the heart, they need to get to it before the Noah do. Um, it's mostly a lot of talking and talking things over and seeing where we've come so far and what still needs to be done. But I'm still bogged down by the fact that we don't get a normal enough release on all of this. It doesn't keep this series fresh enough for it to be able to continue the way it is. And I feel like the artist should pass over at least, drawing duties to someone else. Because if I remember correctly, it was a wrist injury. And if that's the correct assumption, pass this on to somebody else, to an assistant or something that you trust with the art. Because your series is just kind of going by the wayside at this point. The previous anime adaptation did serve to kind of get people back into it, but there weren't enough chapters to really keep that momentum going. Even Hunter x Hunter, has released things a little more regularly than this. And so we have Alan. Towards the end of the chapter, we have Alan considering everything Apocryphos, um, not wanting to let people know about the fact that that is innocence because he doesn't want, exorcists to start doubting their innocence, causing a sinking issue, and potentially become fallen ones. If you were to tell that people that innocence is so malevolent to such a degree, that could create more issues than it would solve. He also has regrets about bringing Tim Campy along when he first left the order, but he didn't want to be alone, and he even thinks back to the death of Mana's dog Alan. That loneliness that comes with losing someone, and you know, it creates this kind of disjointment within him. Because if he had left Tim Campy, he'd be alone, but bringing Tim Campy with him left him alone anyway. As all these memories starts to surge, Alan slowly summons the Ark. He apologizes to Canada, and says that he'll take back the human-shaped innocence himself. Johnny and Tidal are alerted to this, seeing the light from the Ark, and as they look inside, and after hearing Kaneda yell, they notice that both Alan and Kaneda have disappeared. So, we're going into the whole, trying to get the heart of innocence in order to finally put an end to the Millennium Earl, or whoever he really is now, be it Mana or whatever. It's confusing. It's very confusing. And it feels like I'd have to constantly keep myself updated with this series in order to know where it's going. We can't even get a proper anime adaptation of things up until this point because there's not enough content for them to even create an OVA series like this. So, honestly, this whole review has just been me complaining about the Gray Man's release schedule, but that is a central issue, and I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice keeping things like this. There are other avenues I feel that artists should be allowed to explore. Something needs to be done about the manga industry to a degree, offering more help to mangaka, because you can create better series and keep that cash flow going, and it feels like Shonen Jump isn't taking the correct response to the issues that mangaka are having. I love seeing great art, and the Gray Man's art has done nothing but improve over time. And having one specific person work on it does create a synergy and consistency that people love to see. But if it comes at the expense of a mangaka's health, creating nothing but issues and inconsistencies, hell, Taite Kubo ultimately even, had issues with the way Shonen Jump ran things to the point where his mangaka suffered because of his mental state and his feelings towards Shonen Jump, and that does nothing but create issues. Not giving mangaka the creativity or the assistance or the downtime that they really need just creates nothing but more problems further down the line when we start to get near what should be the end of a series, and it just kind of turns to shit because the author is no longer able to keep up with it mentally or physically. But that's enough ranting. Tell me your thoughts on this chapter in the comments below, or tell me your thoughts on anything I had to say during this video, because I could go on and on about that. And if you want a video about me just venting my frustrations towards the manga industry, hey, request that too. But hey, if you liked what you heard in this video, leave me a like, or if you didn't, feel free to leave me a dislike. Tell me where I stand on all of this. And subscribe for more DeGray Man whenever it comes back.